Hey friends, welcome back to a new episode of The Life of a Makeup Artist. We have a lot to learn in today's episode. We are here with Niambi Cacchioli. She is the founder of Pholk Beauty. It is a natural vegan skincare line that is rooted in the African diaspora. And I am so excited to learn from you today. You have no idea. Niambi, how are you?
You know what? I had to learn how to say folk. Is it Pholk Beauty? Like all
Pholk
of
Beauty.
all the syllables. I'm good. You know, this is it. We're well into the holiday season right now, and I'm about to turn 49. So
She's lying.
yeah, my
Why
last.
you always
I'm about to
lying?
get into my last decade of the 40s.
Wow.
So I'm feeling vibrant. I'm feeling good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, your skin says yes. You look amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we have a lot to talk about today,
Okay.
but I want to take it back a little bit. Well, actually, no, before we go there, I would love for you to introduce yourself. I don't know if I gave you like the proper intro, so I would love for you to introduce yourself to your new friends.
Okay, so I am Niambi, and I like to describe myself as a fifth generation gardener from Kentucky. I'm also an African Diaspora historian, and I'm an esthetician. I went to beauty school. And I love sharing the folk wellness of the global Black diaspora. I love telling the stories of how we have infused the globe with so much healing. And I think, doing that through ingredients is a good fit for me because I
Right.
am a green girl. So, every product that we have has ingredients sourced from the Black South, where I'm from the Caribbean, and from Africa. So that's me in a nutshell.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, so you were born in Georgia,
Mhm.
but you grew up in Kentucky.
Right.
And, your family has a very, they grew up farming and gardening, and that
Mhm.
was just part of your normal. Can you tell us more about that? Because that's so interesting. Like, even though I'm from the Caribbean, we
Mhm.
didn't have any of that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that people find that interesting because growing up in Kentucky, everybody that I knew, like every Black folk had a garden.
Right.
And most of our grandparents, if not our parents, grew up on farms.
Mhm.
My mom, when she was growing up, her mother would send her and her sister down to Texas to help out with their farm. They had like farm hours, like 5 o'clock in the morning. And my grandfather also grew up in the Deep South on a farm. So, growing up with people that garden both at their house, and we also had little plots of land in the country, that really was my norm.
Right.
And I grew up thinking that it was easy because I spent so much time, especially with my grandfather. He had like a big pickup truck, and I would hop into the bed of the pickup truck in the back,
Right.
no seatbelt, and we would just ride into the country down
Right.
those dirt roads, and I would just kneel beside him and
Right.
plant, and
Right.
harvest and water, and it was a easy way to be with him,
Right.
but also like tasting how delicious pure and simple ingredients was really my norm.
Right.
So I grew up with women who would take a fistful of roses from the
Right.
garden or mint and throw them in the bath or put them in some water, and that was just every day for me. That was we didn't even talk about it. We didn't have a
Right.
name for it. It wasn't natural beauty. It wasn't
Right.
wellness.
Right.
It just was.
Right. But I can imagine in 2020 when everybody started to want to grow their own food and I forgot the name of the little, I don't even know what you call it, but those white little machines with you can grow stuff inside your house. I mean, it's hard because, did anything change for you when you moved to Jersey City? Because I mean, we're in New York. I don't have space to grow my own whatever.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I mean, the little white thing you're talking about, I don't know that life because that
She's
to
like,
me, it actually
what
seems
is that?
complicated.
Right.
It seems complicated because you're
It
growing.
also takes very long.
It does, right? And you're growing plants that don't necessarily want to be inside. So
Right.
props to anybody who can make that work.
Right.
When I bring my mint and my basil and lemon balm or whatever inside, they're like, girl, bye.
Right.
Take me back outside. Take me back
Right.
outside.
Right.
And so I think I I actually need to live in places where I have access
Right.
to green. It's
Right.
a huge part of how I feel normal, how I
Right.
feel comfortable. And I think I love city life, but it gets very noisy and
Right.
hectic for me,
Right.
and I just get weird
Right.
also. And I think probably learning early on in my 20s when I moved to London for grad school that I can flourish in cities, but I need
Right.
green. I need to be able to grow. So 2020 was interesting for me because I actually did like a farm course in 2020.
Really? I didn't know that.
I
That's so
did.
cool.
Yeah. I enrolled at the end of 20 and I did it in 2021, but we were still largely.
So what did you feel like was missing that you signed up for?
So,
the course?
one is that at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, okay, are we going to have to just become farmers? Is this
Right.
what's happening?
I was like, because there's like little communities, like one in Harlem, like you
Yeah.
can join and have your little plot or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, I need to join one. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but have I done it? No.
Well, we went, my husband and I, we moved to Union City because I was like, I need my own garden. I had been doing community gardening, but it wasn't enough. I didn't want to
Right.
travel
Right.
or get on a bus.
Right.
And so the house that we bought actually had a little bit of backyard. It was enough for me to grow collards and
Right.
watermelon and lavender and lemon balm. And so I have been doing that for years.
Right.
And having that space for my kids
Right.
was, it was like a lifeline.
Right.
But for me as well, 2020 was really when Pholk started to take off.
Right.
Because we already had our community. We had our
Right.
melanin community. As an African Diaspora historian,
Right.
I understand how to talk about,
Right.
some taboo issues that
Right.
the beauty industry was not necessarily understanding how to talk about at that
Right.
point. And so the business was growing at a pace that I did not expect.
Right.
And for me, I both needed my own space,
Right.
just apart, but also I had taken, I had my own kind of reckoning in
Right.
2020
Right.
because Pholk was getting a lot of opportunities as
Right.
part of the Buy Black movement.
Right.
And, I had to think about, well, what about like my people? What
Right.
about Black folk in Kentucky
Right.
and
Right.
Georgia and Texas? Like,
And
how,
take it back to your
right?
roots.
Like, how can I lean into our growth,
Right.
so that we all grow,
Right.
and that people like my grandfather and
Right.
my great grandparents, how can I bring them into the beauty aisle?
Right.
And right.
Well, I love how you are so community based with Pholk Beauty. But, before we go into like all of the accolades, because I'm like so excited about the award that you just got, but we'll get into that. How was like you went to Europe, for grad school. At what point was Pholk even born? And like, when did you decide, what, I want to start a skincare line?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, not at all when I was in grad school. So as an undergrad, I started as pre-med. I was a nerdy blurdy science girl. I did a lot of lab work
Right.
as a high school and college student. And I actually did Middle Eastern studies. I graduated with Iranian studies, yes. And I wanted to go to Iran, like straight out of undergrad, but our countries had no diplomatic relationships at that time. And so I moved to London to understand kind of how to be abroad, how to live abroad, how to travel. No, people in my family, like, they didn't travel, not like that. They certainly didn't live abroad.
Right.
And so I started with Middle Eastern studies, and I made my way into diaspora work because I worked for a cultural organization called the Africa Center. I was like the Black American there.
Right.
And it really was like my first taste of the African diaspora, the global diaspora.
Right.
And then I ended up moving to Paris, and I worked for a cultural organization called UNESCO. and I worked for a project called the Slave Root Project as like the Middle Eastern scholar within that.
Right.
And so, if there is a Black community in the world, I will find it. Like that's what people they be like, is there 3 Black people somewhere? And Niambi's gonna find them. Right. And so, I got to travel to Iran and Turkey and Egypt and Morocco
That's so cool.
and India. I've been kind of adopted by this beautiful community of Afro-Indians in Gujarat.
Right.
And I didn't always speak the language, and so I would go to markets and I would pick up ingredients to sort of hack my own products, just like I did when I was growing up with my my mom and my grandmother. And when I would go to the markets, I would often see artisans that looked like me and looked like my people selling products that were very similar to how I grew up taking care of my skin. And so that really is the seed of Pholk, and diaspora means seed. So I think it's just appropriate. But I didn't really think of myself as a founder until 2014. I come back to the US. Typical overachiever. I was pregnant with my first child. I had taken a teaching job at Rutgers. I taught it for 2 years. And then at the end I was like, this is not my vibe. Like
this is a ghetto child.
This is not my, I mean, yeah, in so many ways it just,
but you had so much knowledge, so I could I could understand why you felt the need to like, okay, I need to share what I know. And like,
here's the real deal for me. I have really dedicated my career to global Black culture, and all of the wellness and healing that we have brought across the globe. That is like the golden thread of the diaspora. And I found that as a historian, I would always have to like bring out the trauma. I'd always have to talk about trauma first. And so for me, it's like, I want to tell our stories, but I want to tell them in the order that I have experienced them. And so I start with beauty. I start with plants. I start with healing. I kind of sneak in some of the history, for example, our honeysuckle rose mist. I chose those plants because I grew up with honeysuckle and rose in my garden, but also historically Black women in the South used those botanicals for love spells. And I just think that is so poetic. Yeah. And they did it during slave time, So I was like,
that's so cool.
Yeah. Even during the darkest time, Black women have always cultivated beauty. We have always cultivated healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the stories are not accurately told, so we'll never know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I have a question.
That's why I love.
Did you ever do a love spell?
I mean, you know what? I will be very honest. Pholk is a love spell.
I love that.
Pholk is like my love altar. Like all the ingredients are ingredients that I have absolutely fallen in love with, whether they, I'm looking at my rose geranium here and my lavender and lemon balm.
Yes.
My lemon balm is like my grandfather.
Yes, let's talk about this. Okay, so Pholk Beauty is all about nourishing ingredients.
It is,
and like you said, it's a love letter. It's a love spell. And you brought me such a cute little gift. So I want to talk about this because why do you choose these particular ingredients? Because you can plant anything that you have limited space. You have to choose the things that you really like resonate with and that you use. So why did you choose these particular like ingredients to grow?
So I do like to grow ingredients from my family and from the diaspora. I like to have my own relationship with them.
Right.
And, oftentimes in the skincare industry, it's all about like, the rarest plant.
Right.
The most, I can't use the word exotic, but that's what they call it.
Right.
But for me, especially when you're talking about brown and Black skin, it's the hardiest ingredients. Like we want the ingredients that pretty much you put them in the soil and they can grow by themselves.
Right.
And we want the ingredients that understand how to protect themselves because they bring that to us as well.
Right.
And I find that, ingredients like collards and the dark leaves from, that have migrated from Africa and are now in the Caribbean and the South. These are ingredients from like high sun climates.
Right.
And we are people from high sun climates. So
Yep.
the parallels
Right.
are really interesting.
Right.
These are ingredients that know how to retain water.
Right.
Right. They're nutrient packed and they're resilient. So for me, this is like the African Diaspora
Right.
in a mason jar.
Right.
I tend to also grow ingredients that are in the Black Southern tradition
Right.
at my house.
Right.
But I do love sourcing ingredients from across the diaspora.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, what I love most about you is that you took the time to dig deeper into, this industry that you were interested in.
Yeah.
You became an esthetician. Can you tell us more about that experience? Because you had the farming and the gardening and all these things. And, you have the knowledge when you went to school. So like everything is kind of like clicking into piece.
Yeah.
But you were like, no, I need to like dig deeper. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. At the beginning, when I first started making products, it was really for my local community,
Right.
for, Union City, Jersey City, going into New York.
Right.
And when I decided to really do a lot more festivals in New York, like Afropunk,
Right.
Project Beauty Expo,
Right.
shout out to Project Beauty Expo, the Bomb Market. These were, largely Black women, some men, but mainly women, coming to me. And for the most part, the conversations would always start with, I would ask them, what are your skin needs?
Right.
And they would almost always start with, I have problem skin.
Right.
And it hurt me.
Right.
It was like heartbreaking to hear hundreds and hundreds of Black women tell me I have problem skin. And I, at some point as a sociologist, you always look for patterns. I could see the pattern of dermatitis across their face.
Right.
Right. I could see the rashes. I would ask them, what are you using? And kind of cobble together what the ingredients that were, can we cuss?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So I could, just from the pattern,
Right.
I could figure out the ingredients or the products that were fucking up their skin.
Right.
But they were trusting me.
Right.
And so I went back to school. I went to
Right.
beauty school because two things. I wanted to, get my credentials.
Right.
And earn their trust. But I also wanted to see how the beauty industry approaches melanin skin, because there are two things. Like everybody says, we have magical, resilient skin.
Right.
At the same time, the breakouts, the dark marks, the ingrown hairs,
Right.
The dryness,
Right.
the texture,
Right.
it's all there. And I was talking, to hundreds of women. So I knew that the beauty industry was not serving us.
Right.
So I wanted to see how they did it.
Did you feel like it was accurately taught though?
Just wow. Was it taught at all? Is the question.
That's like same thing with beauty school. Like
That's
I'm
the
just like the stories
question.
that I've never went to beauty school, but the things that I hear sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's a good thing I didn't waste my money there.
Okay, day 2, I didn't start with aesthetics, with skincare. At my program, I actually started with makeup. So day 2, and I'm like, I'm glammed up, y'all. So
Right.
I'm not a makeup person.
Right.
I do love it, but I don't do it. So I was in my makeup class, and my instructor had to run out to Walgreens to buy foundation for my shade. And like, this is not like some podunk town. This is New York City.
Right.
Times Square. Like this is, and most of the, yes, let's pause. Because now I'm getting emotional about it. But most of the students, I would say at least 50% of the students were women of color.
Right.
And they didn't even have a foundation for my shade. Like no one could even practice on me.
Right.
So that's number 1. That was day 2. And then when we did eventually get to the skincare component, we talked about melanin for a day, but not even a whole day.
Right.
They introduced the Fitzpatrick scale.
Right.
they did not talk about all of like the wellness of melanin, because I don't think they even understand what
they don't
melanin
know.
is. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, when we got to the point, so I had to do my own research, and I
Right.
can do that. And also at my age, I would always be the one in the front,
Right.
asking questions like, that ingredient, how does it react with melanin skin? I had a couple instructors that were women of color, and they would, give us the tea.
Right.
But it was really, Jaleesa, it was when I was in the student clinic where we were practicing. We were working with real ass clients.
Right.
And I could see, because you can hear everything.
Right.
You can hear what people are suggesting.
Right.
And I could hear systematically every Black and brown woman that came in, if there was not a Black practitioner, they would always get the brightening treatment. They would always get the harshest ingredients on the back bar, and they even still had hydroquinone.
I was about to ask you about that, because that's a whole other conversation, because there's a culture behind that too.
At the back bar. And so the training that I got was, you want to, for the clients that are coming back, the first time that you see them, put 2 drops of hydroquinone. The second time, put 3, 4, 5. And I was actually told by my instructor, these Black women, they're going to want you to make it stronger, but you're going to have to hold them back or some bullshit like that. And I was like,
what?
Why is hydroquinone on the back bar, first of all? Second of all, why are you having students dose it? We don't know shit.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, leave that to like a medical spa.
Right. So for those who are listening that might not be familiar with that ingredient, can you share more about it?
Yeah, so it's a skin lightening ingredient. And I think part of my reaction to it is that I did spend 12 years living in London, and I was young. I moved there when I was 24. And then between London and Paris, they have much stricter laws regarding skincare ingredients. So I actually was not used to hydroquinone.
Right.
There were a lot of, African and South Asian immigrants in Europe who would use skin lightening ingredients, and mercury in them. I'm not paralleling hydroquinone to that by any means.
Right.
But, when I lived in Europe, I would see Black women who had like marbled skin.
Right.
Right. And it almost looked, after a while, you could see that they had just gone overboard. You could see like the bruising on their cheeks.
Right.
And again, it hurt my heart, because I understood what the skin goal was.
Right.
But, when you extract melanin, when you inhibit melanin from doing what it's naturally supposed to do, which is protect your skin, then you have unintended consequences. And so that's always my reaction with like hyperpigmentation and hydroquinone. I don't necessarily say that you should never use those ingredients, but you definitely need to go to someone who is experienced, and they're targeted treatments. Right? They're not for every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We know like there's a culture, even in the Caribbean and Africa, where it's just like they intentionally bleach their skin.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's a sign of like being more beautiful, which is, we all know, bullshit.
Yeah. It's bullshit, but I think also coming out of 2020, where we're all on our phones, we're all on Zooms, and you have the filter culture. Everybody wants perfect skin.
Right.
And the beauty industry as a whole also wants our dollars.
Yes.
Right? And so they know that we have this desire to have like smooth, even skin.
Right.
And you can achieve that, but you don't always need to achieve it just by, going after melanin. In fact, I feel that if we had a better understanding of what melanin actually, how it actually functions for our entire wellness system, we would use less of those products. I do think so.
I think we need a second episode because I need a, I want to know. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I know we started to touch on this earlier, but in 2020, like you said, Pholk Beauty, pretty much exploded. You were already rooted in community, in education, in, natural ingredients. What was that like experience for you? Because the orders started coming in and you were like,
damn,
wait, what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, it was hard. It was, so God bless Julie Wilson, who was a queen.
Hi, Julie.
Because we already knew each other, as she loved Pholk products. She understood, our ethos. She used our Featherlight Skin Nectar, and she also had she was definitely a mentor, but she also was like, get it together.
Right.
This is your opportunity, right? And so when she moved over to Cosmopolitan at the beginning of 2020, she did it with such a bang. She published this, I guess it's one of those listicles where,
this is the skincare you need to try right now.
This is skincare you need to try, Black-owned brands. Right. This was both her statement at Cosmopolitan and also her offering. Like, she set the tone.
Wow.
For how we were going to,
chills.
Right? How we were going to give Black-owned brands the space and the shine that we deserve. Right. Because we're always introducing ingredients, right? We're the ones.
Right.
And so Pholk was on that, was in that roundup. And after a while, I saw people were just like copying and pasting. So we ended up being in like 90% of those 2020 roundups. On the other hand, we were making our own product. So we had
like, wait a minute, just give me a second, guys.
Right. Yes, I was definitely not set up for that.
Right.
And I'm a mom. I have 2 kids.
Right.
My now 14-year-old and my 11-year-old had started new schools in COVID, virtual schools. So, and also I have to say, Breonna Taylor is a homegirl. Like, she's from Louisville, Kentucky. Wow. And I started getting news alerts about what was happening in Louisville before the rest of the country. Wow. And so it was, what can I say? It was intense. Right. It was intense. But I felt like this is, just like Julie took that opportunity, I felt like this is how I can serve. Right. And I also felt like I have done the work. Right. I do have the expertise. Right. And a lot of social media was about looking at COVID as like a wellness opportunity. Right. Do your yoga, do this. My girls, we would meet. I would work with like local podcasters and influencers, and we would do Friday night wine downs with some wine,
so cute,
or bourbon, because I'm a Kentucky girl. Gotta stay on brand. But first and foremost, anytime I did a live or a Zoom call with our Pholk fam, it was always, how are you doing? Right. And what I found is that our customers were on the front line. Right. So I needed to be on the front line with them. Wow. That's how I felt. Is like, how to figure out with you. You have acne under your mask because you have to wear your mask for 10 hours a day. Let me coach you how to, take your mask off, clean your skin, put that mask back on. So I really felt like in some ways, we of course were not on the front lines in the emergency rooms, but our customers were. Yeah. And their skin was all over the place. Right. And it was so much change at the same time. Right. I felt like that's how I could best serve them.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, and I'm happy because we also met in 2020 when you won Clean Beauty School,
I
hosted
did.
by Amy Lou and Tower 28. And if you
Mhm.
haven't heard that episode where, Amy goes into exactly what she does with the program, definitely check that out. But what was
I'm
that
wearing
process?
Tower 28 right
Oh
now.
my, is it the blush? Is it
It's the blush.
Oh, it's so good,
Yeah, I
right?
just did a TikTok about it because I am obsessed.
It's so, no, everything that she does is so good.
Yeah.
Do you like the milky jelly, like the
I
gloss?
like the milky jelly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the new mascara is really good too.
I haven't done the mascara, but it just makes me feel fresh face.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that experience, like signing up? Because you mentioned, I think off camera, but like you're an introvert, like,
Mhm.
and you have to put yourself out there now. You have to speak on behalf of your brand, pitch, do all these things. And obviously I know that you're very well spoken and can do that. But,
Mhm.
What was that process like?
It was very intimidating because I'm fans of all the brands.
Right.
I'm always fans of all the brands that are coming up. But I, at the time I knew what my value was.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what my point of view was.
Mm-hmm.
I did see a number of brands popping up
Mm-hmm.
that were focusing on melanin skincare,
Mm-hmm.
but not necessarily thinking of it holistically. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make sure that for women who want natural options
Mm-hmm.
and they want to really nourish and feed their skin,
Mm-hmm.
they need to have that option in the aisle.
Right.
And I had also done a lot of work connecting with Black farmers in the US. I already had really solid connections
Mm-hmm.
with suppliers in Senegal and Ghana. I'd even visited one of our suppliers in outside of Dakar. And
Wow.
so I really wanted to lean in
Mhm.
and for Black farmers in the South.
Mhm.
And I felt like that story and
Mhm.
those ingredients
Right.
weren't necessarily in
Right.
stores yet. So I had done accelerators before,
Mhm.
and I know that they're like rocket launchers for your
Right.
business.
Right.
And so, but I had never done one that was like founder led, and
Right.
that was
Yeah.
amazing.
So dope.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
a cheat sheet.
Right.
I mean, it
they're
was a
telling you what to
cheat
do on
sheet.
TikTok. They're like, let's
I
get
mean,
it. Yeah.
yes.
They're like, let's go.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that accelerator started out as a group text because I think a lot of the founders
Mhm.
were either coming out of a Sephora accelerator or
Right.
they were like new kids on the block at
Right.
Sephora. And that's how you do it, actually.
Community.
Yes, you find your community. You can find some people who are in your lane, but you
Mhm.
also have to find people who are
Yeah.
running up next to you
Yeah.
because there are times
Yeah.
when you just have to text and be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is happening and nobody else will understand.
Right.
The people who are in front of you or behind you or where you want to be, they won't even understand. So
Right.
having a cohort,
Right.
I think was the best part. And yeah, so they did a pitch competition, and I had already done a couple of cohorts, so I
Right.
knew kind
Right.
of what our point of difference
Right.
was. But girl, I didn't know Canva.
I remember the day.
God!
So I hosted the event. And I
Yeah.
remember that day so clearly. And it was just like, because you had some issues that day
I
with your
did.
Canva.
Yeah,
And it was
well-
just like, it doesn't matter. Once your stuff
Yeah.
is solid,
Yeah.
because you would, I'm sure in that moment, you're
Right.
like, your heart is beating.
Yeah.
You're like, I fucked it up. Like,
I did.
You know?
I wanted it so badly. I did. Going into the cohorts, I had gone into a previous cohort experience where it was like, I just want to be in the room.
Right.
But with this one, I really wanted to tell my story and
Right.
connect. And there were also amazing opportunities. So I was
Right.
highly motivated. But I didn't even know that you could do a deck on Canva. So I made all my deck slides in Canva and then I exported them into PowerPoint. And I just had
Computer
a Gen X
said-
moment. That's
computer
all I
said
can
no.
say. Oh yeah, the tech
Computer
god said no.
no.
And I made a choice. I couldn't see anybody except for you when I was
Really?
pitching. Yes. I I couldn't even see myself, girl. Ooh. I couldn't see shit. I could see you, and that's who I talked to.
Oh my God.
And
okay, I'll take that.
yeah, and I don't know if you remember, but at some point, I think you said you only have like 5 minutes left, and I had to decide. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not going to win this pitch competition, but people need to know how I really feel.
Right.
They need to. So I turned it off. I just pushed it aside, and then I told my story, and I talked about what I really want to do.
Right.
And that was enough.
Right.
So that was my biggest takeaway from that moment was you're enough. Like the PowerPoint, the graphics, the bells and whistles, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody,
because you can have a perfect presentation, but people have to feel connected and see the vision, and that's in you.
Yeah. And there are such good opportunities with accelerators.
Right.
They do make your business, so they're very competitive now.
Right.
And of course you want to in Black folk, we are raised to show our best.
Right.
We are raised to, we're ambassadors of Black excellence, and that there is a lot of pressure that comes with that.
Yeah.
But we will come correct, right?
Yep.
So we will come with the decks.
We're
going to come with the decks, right? On the other hand, entering into those spaces and knowing that you're enough and just understanding what your value is, I think that's the real goal.
That's amazing.
That's the real goal, yeah.
So now you've just won another award.
Right.
Look at you here, just like everyday life. Another award. It's Tuesday. Look at me. But I am so happy for you. You won a 2022 Melanin Award for one of your products. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm not nonchalant at all. I was,
like I does.
Yes. Not at all. No, I don't ever take any of that for granted, but especially the Melanin Awards, because I am a melanin advocate.
Right.
I'm a melanin enthusiast, not just for culturally melanin folk, but also for the polymer itself, like actual melanin. And I love that it was our Workacita all over balm.
Right.
Because I have been making balms I started making really simple balms when I was like 4. I was like the fresh and fancy girl. And
really?
Oh, yes. And then I would take like my grandmother's cocoa butter and her glycerin, and I melt it down, and that's how I would hack my products.
Right.
And I started making balms, I wouldn't say professionally in Paris, but there was I had access to all the ingredients when I lived in Paris, because we had there were a lot of ingredients that were coming in from West Africa, from North Africa, like the shea butters and the cold pressed oils. It was really easy to get ingredients.
So what is the balm used for? Is it just like a all over balm, like a healing balm?
We call it the Workacita because it's a workaholic. It works all over your body. And initially I started making that one just for the body. And one of my really great friends, Pepper Bass, is a makeup artist. And she would always put the Workacita in her kit.
Oh.
Because she would say, you can use it for anything. Like anywhere you're ashy, you can use it for. And when I was in esthetician school and we had to beat our face twice a day, and they were giving us, alcohol wipes, my skin was like, it was breaking out. It was red. I was like,
blotchy.
Black do crack.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And Pepper said, well, why aren't you just using your Workacita?
She's like, let me tell you about your products, honey.
She was like, why don't you just like rub it, like, put a little bit on and smooth it work it into your eye area, and the makeup will just slide off. And I was like, oh, it saved my skin. And so I love that one, because that is how women of color, that's how Black women use the products.
Right.
We use them wherever we can.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And
so it has mango butter. It has hemp seed oil from my home state of Kentucky. We work with a Black-owned cooperative called Black Soil Kentucky, and
Wow.
they help us get all of our hemp seed oil.
Wow.
And
That's
then,
amazing.
Yeah, that's how we whip it up.
Oh, okay. Well, definitely, if you're listening, go check that out.
Yeah.
But I want to ask though, what are you looking forward to in 2023? That is not business related, because Pholk has been on the up and up. You have
Right.
2 kids, like,
Yeah.
you have all of this going on, and I could imagine, like, even though 2020 was just 2-3 years ago, like, so much has changed in your life. Like, what are you looking forward to? That's like, you're about to be, you're out of what, you're 49, you're about to move into this new decade.
Yeah.
What's
Well, actually, so I'm turning 49 at the end of this year.
turning 49.
I'm turning 49 at the end of this year.
Okay.
Right. December. I have a Christmas birthday.
Really?
So,
Wait.
yes.
When's your birthday?
Christmas.
So you're a Capricorn?
Oh, can you not tell?
Really?
I mean, sometimes I'll be texting, especially like it happens with the mom crew.
Right.
Because my younger kid is 11, so we're still kind of coordinating stuff.
Are you the planner in the group?
I will have to say I'm a Capricorn, just by the way. But yes,
I'm January 9th.
Are you January? I was supposed to be born January 10th.
Really?
Yes, and then my mom had a Tom Collins at a holiday party, and I was like, "Oh, you ready for me now?"
Oh my god!
I guess she went like the 23rd or something to a party, and then I came out the 25th, and that's how that went.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
But wait, you didn't even tell me though. What are you looking forward to?
So I'm the baby of my sister circle back in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
We live all over, and we're all going to Antigua.
Oh.
And I've never been to the Caribbean.
What?
I've never been to the Caribbean. I've never been. So we're all...
I love this for you.
We're kicking off. We're celebrating our 50th year together. And then they're going to leave. I'm going to stay.
Yes.
For another 5 days.
Our graphic... have so much fun.
I'm actually going to go to Trinidad because our graphic designer, Jabari...
Is he from Trinidad?
He's from Trinidad, and he...
Really?
His mom and I
want to know him.
are like sisters, yeah.
That's so cool.
So can you believe I've never been?
Do you know what area? You don't know? We'll talk about it. But you have to have like all the food, all the Trini stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun with you. I'm so happy that you came. Okay, so please tell us, you've shared so vulnerably. Like, we want to support you. We want to support your business. So can you share on socials, website, wherever we can find you and support?
Yes, sure. So we are PholkBeauty.com. That's PHOLK. Pholk is in like moms who like to folk, vegan is folk.
Right.
So that's PholkBeauty.com. We're also on Instagram, Pholk Beauty. We have a lot of fun on TikTok.
Yes.
And you can also support us at JCPenney. We are part of the 13 Loon collection.
Yes. And you're in Credo too, right?
We're in Credo, yeah. And also like the indie brands. I want to give a shout out to Luxurious Wellness and to Marjani Beauty in DC.
Yes.
And also to Melanin Grace, because those are also our ride or dies. And
I love that.
Those kind of companies are where Black-owned brands are connecting, first,
right,
with their consumers. So definitely want to give them a shine.
That's amazing. Yeah. I love the community.
Yeah.
Well, we will catch you on the next episode. Don't forget, we are on TikTok and Instagram at The Life of a Makeup Artist everywhere. We will catch you in the next episode. Bye, guys.
Love this. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much.